Hey everybody, before the show gets started, I want to let you all know about something fantastic happening here in the Triangle, more specifically in downtown Raleigh. Me, of course, I'm over here at Y Hill Kitchen and Brewing all the time, but now we're deciding to open up on Mondays and Tuesdays as well. But there's a huge key factor, and that involves my friend Chef Jake Wood of Lawrence Barbecue and his team, who are going to be coming in every Monday and Tuesday through the fall until the much-anticipated opening of his new place out in RTP will happen. Jake?
We are stoked to be here. We're going to be keeping it smoky for you guys every Monday and Tuesday through the fall. Barbecue, meat and 3. We got oysters, we got milkshakes, we got fixins, we got sauces, barbecue. Come holler at us. We got you covered.
And we got the bar at Y Hill going all the way through, just like you normally see it, plus maybe some new additions as well. Chris?
Yeah, we're working on a bunch of new cocktails for you. We got all of our house-brewed beer, and we can't wait for you guys.
So check social media both on the NCFB Pod, Lawrence Barbecue, and Y Hill for more details. But you heard it here, Monday and Tuesday throughout the fall, Lawrence Barbecue at Y Hill in downtown Raleigh.
You are listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for downloading and subscribing. Coming to you virtually live from high atop the historic Raleigh building in beautiful downtown Raleigh. The NCF&B takes the listener behind the scenes to tell the stories of the people that contribute to the creation of the food and beverage community of North Carolina. And now, the misfits in the dish pit, the faces of the front. They are Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today in studio, we are very happy to have on the show a former sponsor and great friends of our show and wonderful people all around, the owners and creators of Bestow Baked Goods in my town, Holly Springs, but available for you all around the Triangle. We have Heather Sutton and Kyle Sutton. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, guys. Excited to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show. I mean, wow, this is like a long time coming, right? We've been doing a lot. We just talked about it before the mics went live. How long have we known each other? What have we been doing?
Man, it occurred to me today, man, the better part of 2 years. The thing with the bakery, man, is that, we get, into people's lives and just kind of do life together. So we were saying, like, hey, I've done, like, birthday parties for Max's daughters 2 years in a row. Did the bris for
Gray. Yeah, my youngest.
Yeah, and then their father-in-law's cake when he retired. And
his birthday this year. Gluten-free, yeah.
Man, even when we were getting started, ironically, we actually met a bunch of folks just through the show that we wanted to kind of learn from.
Yeah.
And just, like, shot him a note, like Andrew Ellum.
Yeah.
Heard his episode, shot him a note cold. Dude's super busy. He sat down and opened the kimono for like an hour and a half, right? And helped us get started, right? Like, and that's the type of thing, man. So yeah, we have a history, to say the least.
Yeah, it was cool. I think you come to us and you're like, yeah, we have this bakery inside of a coffee shop that was in Fuquay Arena, correct?
That's
getting
right.
started.
Yeah.
And we'd like to promote what we're going to do. We're going to have a brick and mortar someday, but we'd like to get our name out there. You guys are fairly connected and all. And then just friendship connected right there. And we saw you weekly because you were providing a cake for all of our guests. And Heather, you would make this bestowed, what's the other word I'm trying to, bespoke, a bespoke bestowed cake for each person. If they were like a brewer, there'd be like little pint glasses on the sides or the logo of the label, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Always really cool. Let's get into some baking. So, Heather, how did this all come to be?
Well, so I like sweets. And I decided if I was going to eat them, I should know how to make them. So we started doing a little bit of experimentation. And it was that our first year dating, babe?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so we were experimenting with cakes and cookies and different stuff. And I'd take them into my office, or Kyle would take them into his office and share them with people. And
what were you doing at that time? Remind me, Heather.
So I worked with Wake County Public Schools.
Okay.
I was a Spanish interpreter for a little while, and then I worked in the Office of Early Learning as a budget technician and just kind of baked for fun. Yeah. We had people start asking for cakes and cupcakes and things for birthday parties, and decided we would make a thing of it.
And then what was the next step? So you were tinkering and what does that mean to make a thing of it? Like, you sign an official document between each other, or you rented a space? What happened?
You do a blood oath. No. Yeah, so it's funny, man. North Carolina, the ag department is actually really hospitable towards like cottage food businesses. Yeah. So it was a matter of basically like certifying our home kitchen to be kind of a home producer. Yeah. And at that point, you're set up to do, basically anything that's not refrigerated, right? So, pastry. There was a guy doing at the farmer's market who has like a really big Hamantaschen business that started into some like really like bespoke random stuff. And so we just did it, man. So we certified our home kitchen, started doing weddings, birthday parties, made some bad decisions and removed our dining room, brought in a 30-quart mixer and a commercial oven to scale. And as it turns out, your home HVAC is not designed to deal with that amount of heat. So we just couldn't wait to get it out. So that's how that's making it a thing.
Yeah. And I guess that answers the question, because for people that are listening that don't know these two, Kyle, you are a accomplished, to say the least, pitmaster, and he's going to be humble about it, but we know, and I've had the pleasure of eating your brisket, because you also will do these wonderful things about bringing to people's home in times of need after you have a baby or whatever the situation may be. Yeah, so I guess that answers the question of why it wasn't you that started a business as well, or maybe like baked goods and barbecue or something like that. Or maybe that's in the work. Maybe that's the next thing.
No, a lot of our friends and family would love for us to do the barbecue and bakery, but Kyle does not want to do the barbecue thing full time.
Well, yeah, I mean, the restaurant business is a little dicey even on a good day, and I feel like the Sutton family can probably tolerate one high-risk venture at a time. Right? So, hey, let's keep doing this, marketing for a tech company thing and, consistently paying the bills, and then go do some, live your dream, roll the dice sort of thing on the other side. And I'm totally cool with that. That's a good place to be.
That's like when you see talent left on the table. A certain athlete might be focusing on swimming. Michael Phelps, but I'm just making this up. But what if he also was a great football player? But he's I'm choosing to just do the swimming. We're yeah, bro, but my fantasy team could definitely use your speed and all that. It's
we just had our fantasy draft last night, and Max is thinking about some picks that he probably left on the table. He's remorseful, but yeah, when Bo Jackson, former Raider, only chose baseball. Partly due to injury, but that was a loss.
That's why I always kid around when with the Olympics and all, totally going off on a random tangent, but it's random countries that are facing us in random sports, you can win this gold. If we put LeBron James in any of these events, he'd win all of them. So it's fine. It's cute. You can have this. It's fine. But I kid, but Your brisket, this is not an episode about your brisket, but it needs to at least be said. Your brisket is insane.
It's unbelievable.
It's better than all the professional briskets put together, and it's like there are all these guys that make wine that are these boutique garagistes. Yeah, they're making wine in the garage, and some guys put things out that are they could sell for $400 a bottle, crazy, amazing stuff. But then you'll never see it, or they'll only make 20 cases, and they're yeah, sorry, this is just for me and my family. But you're no, make this for the world to consume.
Seriously.
But Kyle is he's stingy with his talent. He's not letting everybody else have it.
Actually, I mean, he is. He just doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't want to commercialize it, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, I'll make, and it's kind of the root of what we do, right? We were feeding people, we were feeding crowds long before Bestow was a thing. We were having 4th of July parties with 50 people, and again, your HVAC is not designed for 50 people in your house. Yeah. And so any opportunity to make barbecue is a good one, but it's do I want to if I'm taking you a brisket at 12 o'clock, I'm lighting my pit at 6 p.m. the night before.
Yeah.
Do I want to do that to make my mortgage? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right. So, and granted, you get people, but I'm totally content to have it as a hobby that I take seriously, and that's cool, man. It works.
Well, but yeah, okay. Back to what you are commercializing in Bestow. For people that are listening that don't know, or they live on, like, let's say all the way out in Wake Forest, or, they're in Greensboro or wherever, what is your calling card? Like, you make cakes, you make cupcakes. What would you say, like, the first thing you would want somebody to eat when you think of Bestow baked goods?
Probably the sweet potato cupcake.
Yeah, that's your jam.
Yeah, that's my jam. We've converted a lot of folks with that guy too. So that one came about. That was one of our early experiments, actually. My grandmother bakes. And she's an incredible baker. And my favorite thing that she makes is her sweet potato pie. So I've, of course, asked for her recipe, but I always got, a pinch of cinnamon and a dash of nutmeg and a little bit. And I'm like, I can't do that, Grandma.
Yeah.
Like I need measurements. Like, you got to give me some instruction here. And so I tried a sweet potato cake and did the grandma thing and just happened to write it down as I was going along, and it was like magic. So it's like our most popular wedding cake flavor. It's always going to be in the case at the bakery. Like, it's just good.
It's
cake.
your signature, your calling card, sweet potato cake.
Yeah, like we started there. Like, it's something that, back when we were doing like 400 weddings a year or so, like 80% were sweet potato. And, it's not a common flavor, right? It's not a thing you see a bunch, but it's also really cool because it's like indicative of the region. Like, we were a sweet potato machine in North Carolina. We're both like natives. And, like, it's kind of an unexpected thing. So, brides will go into a tasting like, this is really...
I don't even want to taste... I don't need to taste the sweet potato one.
And I'll have that one. Like, that's kind of how it plays out.
So... You're baking out of your home kitchen. You've kind of industrialized it a little bit with all of this. But then at some point, as we mentioned, you did kind of move the business, or at least had a forward-facing spot in Fuquay. Am I saying it right? Fuquay, Verena?
Yes.
And remind me, what's the name of the coffee shop that you were working out of?
It's Cultivate Coffee Roasters.
Cultivate Coffee Roasters.
Yeah, so we did.
Downtown Fuquay.
Yep. Yeah, we did all the baked goods there for a little while, and we just outgrew the space really quickly, like faster than we expected, I think. Mm-hmm. We got a contract to do, so we do all the wedding cakes at High Grove Estate, which is also in Fuquay. And we needed more space, so we decided we'll go out and do our own brick and mortar thing, and here we are.
Well, there was a weird... Sorry, everyone's going to hear that I have something in my mouth.
A sweet potato donut, ironically.
I'm eating a sweet potato donut because they are amazing.
Thank you.
Perfect. Washing it down, a little cold brew. But there was a crazy synergy. I don't even know if I told you this, Matt, but like when Kyle reached out with the prospect of saying, like, hey, maybe we could our company be a sponsor on the NCF&B podcast? It was like, yeah, of course, why not? Simultaneous to that, a friend of ours randomly said, my friend just got a cake from this amazing baker and showed me, and it was a unicorn cake.
Unicorn cake.
And this was happening in the same week. Like, you two had reached out, and we hadn't finalized any, like, we just kind of opened the conversation to do something about sponsorships. And then I'm at the Triangle Wine Experience dinner at St. Roch, and our daughter's birthdays are all in February, and so this was all happening right around that time. And she goes, all I know is this woman that made this unicorn cake is the greatest cake we've ever had. And I know your daughters are obsessed with unicorns, especially your youngest. So we're like, yeah, and we're looking at it on Instagram. And then I look and I go, wait a minute, wait, what? And I look and it's Bestow Baked Goods. I go, that's the company. Like, holy crap. So it was all this crazy synergy.
But how did I don't remember. Did you just reach out to us randomly?
Same deal. I reached out cold.
Through Instagram or something. Yeah. And so I'm like, wait, that's 2 times now that Bestow has come up in this week. And so we headed down, and I believe I saw you, Heather, at the Cultivate Coffee at the time. And by the way, downtown Fuquay is pretty cool. Like, it's like it's growing. It's
Aviator Brewery.
They own half of it.
Yeah.
They own half of downtown.
But it is a cool little downtown.
It is. It's some come up.
There's a lot happening there. And so I remember going in there. I'm chatting with the guys at the coffee shop, and I was like, I think there's a woman named Heather that bakes for Bestow. And they're like, oh yeah, she's in the back, whatever. And come out, cake was amazing. Like, it was awesome. So, like, seriously, just as a public service announcement or a sponsorship here, if you have kids and you want a cake for their birthday, this is the best way to go. Like, it was super awesome. But
speaking of sponsorships,
oh yeah, we should take a break to talk about the folks over at the Folks Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit who has their general store. They have a tonic cocktail bar that's being produced soon out there in New Bern. And they have their Folks Journal, which comes out quarterly. That's 4 times, everybody, 4 times a year. But the Folks Foundation are champions of all good things crafted in North Carolina and the folks that make them. So you can find out more, read the journal online for free at folksfoundation.org, and be sure to consider a small donation and help support North Carolina makers.
Don't forget about the Quarantine Project, the album that they made in quarantine that you can go buy on folksfoundation.org as well.
Yeah, a Carolina Quarantine Project. It's a vinyl album. It's on sale on their website, and it includes artists that are local to North Carolina that created songs while sheltered in place. So go check that out. And while you are sheltering in place, you probably want to eat some food. It's pretty essential. You got to do it a couple times a day. What better way than to create an account and get a harvest sent to your house with Hungry Harvest?
That's right. Save yourself a trip to the grocery store. Get farm fresh produce, kitchen staples, and pantry items delivered right to your door, and they do that all for $15.
Yeah, with conventional and organic options, as well as 3 harvest sizes to choose from, it's easy to find the right one for you, because not only is it an affordable and convenient way to help yourself stock up on healthy foods, it's a great way to make a difference with your grocery dollars.
That's right. Every time you receive a harvest, you're contributing to the fight against food waste and hunger in our community. Every delivery saves at least 10 pounds of food from going to waste and supports the local hunger-solving organizations like Interfaith Food Shuttle and with produce donations.
So sign up at hungryharvest.net. Use promo code NCFB30 for 30% off your first harvest. So we're back.
Awesome.
Talking to great folks. So, how's life now? You have opened your brick and mortar. Chris Borison of Y Hill, funny enough, calls that the NCF&B shopping center because you have the Triangle Wine Company, Butcher's Market. There was a former sponsor of the show, and now you guys are there also. How's life there with the brick and mortar? Kyle looks at Heather for an answer.
I mean, she's there. I feel like you have to offer the first opinion because you're there more than me. So
Yeah. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind. Like, we were not sure what to expect opening up in the midst of a pandemic, but it's been nuts. Like, we can hardly keep up with demand. Oddly enough, as much as I would love for the sweet potato cupcake to be the thing that like everybody comes in for, it has been the oatmeal cream pie. Can't keep it on the shelf. Like, can't make enough of them. It's nuts.
Well, explain what it is.
So it's 2 soft, chewy oatmeal cookies with our vanilla buttercream in the middle of it. I mean, it's amazing. It really is a good cookie. But I feel like I also need to say, like, everything that we make is good. Like, people come in and we're sold out by... I mean, we open at 10. We're sold out by 11:30 some days. Wow. Occasionally, we can make it to, like, noon. With a few in the case, but they're gone. And I'm like, hey, have you tried the sweet potato donut? Like, it's really good. Or, our chocolate chip cookie. I mean, it's a classic chocolate chip cookie, but it's a good one. And people are like, I'll come back tomorrow. I'm like, okay.
No, I mean, we've definitely had, and it shows kind of the power of like the mom mafia on Facebook, because what absolutely happened, so we got picked up by 2 groups, the moms of Holly Springs and the women of...
It's the ladies of Holly Springs.
No disrespect, mom mafia, the ladies, 1,000 about, like, the power.
But a lot of those ladies are moms.
Well, no, it's 2. It's the moms of Holly Springs and the ladies of Holly Springs.
Yeah.
Two groups, man, and they just blew it up. And so... it's the best-selling item every day of the week. And I mean, it sounds really simple, but we were talking about earlier, man, like, simple is tough to do. So even our buttercream, it's a vanilla buttercream, but it's kind of a hybrid of 2 styles, right? It's an Italian buttercream married to an American buttercream. It's literally an Italian-American buttercream. I know nothing of the technique. It just sounds cool to say it. You can actually explain the way
Italian-American buttercream, yeah.
I would buy that, right? How does it work, babe?
So Italian meringue buttercream it's like meringue based, right? So you take egg whites and you do the sugar syrup thing, and then we add powdered sugar because it's not super sweet, which we don't want it like American buttercream is typically what you would find like if you were to go to like a grocery store and get a cake. It's the like heavier, sweeter kind of buttercream. So I don't like it super sweet, but I do want it to be, we're making baked goods, like there's sugar in it, right? So we add some powdered sugar to the Italian meringue, and it's magic, or I think so anyway.
It's really solid.
Light and fluffy and delicious.
Doesn't make your teeth hurt. It's not too sweet, so it's good.
Remind me, you were not classically trained, right? Like you guys are you're just avid readers and you really like delve into this. I mean, so how do you learn your recipes? Where do you, some from your grandma, some from reading?
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is how do you scale that to be commercially successful? Like how do you learn how to maximize your recipes to have production?
Man, lots of help.
Okay.
Because when we were, baking from home, I was making like a single cake at a time. I can do that in my 6-8 quart KitchenAid mixer. To keep oatmeal cream pies on the shelf, we are making buttercream now in a 60 quart mixer. And this will be the first time that Kyle has heard me say this out loud. So I'm just going to do it.
Okay, it's going to be good. I'm going to lean forward for this. Please continue.
Lean in, turn out the mic.
So as we're like buying equipment for the new bakery, he's like, we should get this 120 quart mixer. And I'm like, that is massive and insane. And we don't need that. So we were working with like 30 quart mixers.
It's going to be good.
And I'm like, 120 quarts that's like over the top. We don't need that. And so I'm like, let's get 60. And he's like, well, we should at least get 80. I'm like, no. 60 will be fine. 60 is insufficient. We are like,
I like where Kyle's head is at.
Yeah. I've told several people this, but I would not say it out loud to
It's
Kyle.
now
so
public.
This is the first time he's hearing me admit this.
I'm just going to pop down to CVS and get a pack of cigarettes as to savor this moment. I don't even smoke, but I feel like when you're admitting I'm right, I have to just bathe.
So
You don't
right.
get many of those.
No, you don't.
This is in public record now.
It's on the air.
Yeah.
I went to Kyle's laugh. I've finally figured out where it's the penguin. It's the penguin from Batman.
Wow.
It's the most insidious, like villainous laugh.
It is villainous.
When you said cigarette, it was like it all fit together. Because I'm assuming the long,
with
the little
holder.
filter.
Yeah.
The long filter.
They sell that.
That's good.
They sell those.
But what I like, and this actually pertains to somebody that kind of like made me think differently about expansion and growth, and to think big. It's what you were just trying to do right there. Don't double your order, quadruple, or make 6 times bigger because you can grow into it. I was working with Greg Hay, who owns Peregrine Wine and Matua. This is all New Zealand Sauv Blanc stuff, which just during the aughts in the early teens was the biggest, hottest selling white wine in the world, and they were going crazy. He had Peregrine, which was a very small boutique winery. But the Foster's company came in, at the time. But Foster's came in and bought them and said, we need you to make Matua, this other winery. So at the time, Peregrine was only 10,000 cases at most, which is not tiny, but it's small in the
medium
world size.
Medium size. Yeah.
And I said, and he's like, so, and I'll try to do this with my New Zealand accent.
You can't do Greg's accent.
And he's like, yeah, mate, I gotta try to make it much bigger. At the winery, so I'm not going to just make it 2 times or 3 times bigger. I'm going to make it 12 times bigger. And he made this winery
That's pretty good. That's pretty good, by the way.
Was it a decent accent? Yeah. And so he made it so big, and he goes, they only want us to produce 100,000 cases. This place can produce 400,000 cases. And I went, wow, is that fine? He goes, it's kind of the idea, if you're going to steal, don't steal $1, steal $1 million. Just do it. And meanwhile, as he's explaining all this, sidebar of the conversation, he looks outside. He goes, hold on there. He's like, pull over a second there, mate. And I'm like, okay. He goes, pull over quick. And I pull my car over. I'm like, what? He gets out of the car. He goes over to the windshield wiper and notices that a honeybee, has been stuck underneath my windshield wiper. And it's it's dying. And he goes in and he's like, oh, it's okay. No. Oh, yeah, you're good. And he's talking to the bee. And then he picks up the bee. And he unfolds its wing, and then he talks and whispers to it, and kind of blows a kiss to him, and the bee flies away. And I went, "What the hell just happened?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I used to be a beekeeper back in the day." I'm like, what? Okay. It was just a weird thing to see happen in front of you while he's talking about full expansion for the biggest winery in New Zealand. But that's the way you have to think. If you're going to grow, you gotta grow into it. And so then you won't run out at 11:30 on a Tuesday. You'll be like, no, we're just going to make 10 times more, and then hopefully revenue-wise you'll make 10 times more too. That's a great way to go.
Yeah, I mean it's a growth mindset, right? And it's a really important idea. And it's kind of how we roll. When we think about, as you have more, the thing we're always trying to do is build bigger tables and not, higher fences, right?
Yeah.
So, anytime we've scaled, right, in terms of equipment, in terms of capacity, there's always a scenario that, causes us to meet or exceed that capacity. So like I joked about the commercial oven at home, but I'm like, if we're going to do this, like, let's just go ahead and do it. Like, let's figure out, how to get a commercial oven, fire codes be damned, into our house.
Yeah.
And that very quickly became insufficient. And I think we're finding, a similar thing here. Like what are we, like not even 8 weeks into it at the new space, and we're already kind of bumping up against the rails of that capacity on an 8-hour shift.
Yep.
And so, I think it's an okay way to move through the world, I feel like.
Yeah.
Well, it's all those cupcakes you're making for Y Hill.
That's right.
That's true.
That's what's happening
That's true.
here. So I want to mention this because I thought it was a really cool opportunity. We, over at Y Hill, we were getting going, and with COVID and the limited amount of people you could have in the kitchen, technically you really should only have about 3 people in that sized kitchen that we have. Everybody wearing masks, everybody keeping a decent, social distance. It's challenging to any line cook. They're like, yeah, right, bro. Like, how can you be distant with these people? But at least if you're wearing gloves, you're wearing masks, you're doing what you can. You're doing as much as possible while still executing the job. But anything above just doing the normal savory menu would have been a bigger challenge. So Chris, the aforementioned Chris Borison, the owner at Y Hill, we were just discussing, and I thought, my friends over at Bestow make awesome baked goods, and I wonder if we could just outsource all the desserts from them, and why not? And so I remember calling you, Kyle. We're talking business, and I'd love to know your perspective of this. I'm like, I don't know I'm not even going to ask you what your wholesale cost is for your cupcakes. I would like to pay this amount because I want to charge this amount for them on the menu, and I'd like it to be this type of profitability. And you're like, yeah, we could do that. And I'm like, cool. I hope the price is higher than, I'm not lowballing you, but even if it is, I don't want to know either way. I just want to know.
If this works for me, hopefully it works for you.
No, look, and I think I actually appreciate that perspective. I appreciate meeting other restaurant people that actually know their numbers and know where they need to be, because it's actually, sadly, quite uncommon, right? I think people fold because they miss the math. Mm-hmm. And so anytime we enter into a wholesale relationship, that is a consideration. One, I want to provide a phenomenal product, right? That's we couldn't have this conversation. We didn't. And then number 2, I want the margins to work for you as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so, if your numbers have been far from where I needed to be, we would have had that chat. But luckily we started off at the same place, and it was a really easy conversation. But I really appreciate that, actually.
Apparently you guys run out of cupcakes too.
Yeah, so we were going Y Hill's open Wednesday through Sunday. We were typically just, let's get the fresh cupcakes on a Friday. Let's do it that way. We'll have them for the weekend. And so we were ordering 3, sometimes 4, and then we were just selling out even before Sunday hit. We were sold out on Saturday. I'm like, oh my God. And then we're like, well, and then of course, then we added the full 4-layer cake, the sweet potato cake. That's a cake for 2, which is really awesome. And big shout out to our servers there too. Our servers knock it out. They're like, no, you need to try these cakes. This is this, this is this. So their salesmanship has been excellent, and They're just knocking it out and selling these cakes to everybody. So much so that I'd call again, and Alexandria, who works for you, she and I, we've never met. We just text with orders. But I'm like, I think we need to double the order again. I'm like, I think it's going to have to be 6 or maybe 7 dozen now weekly. She's like, oh, I'm like, could it be 2 delivery days instead of 1? And it's you guys are still a small company. So it's well, let me see what Kyle's schedule's like. Can he get there? And it's quaint, and I appreciate it. And you've fulfilled all the things that we've asked, which is great.
Sure.
And we've done the oatmeal cookies, the cream pies, and all these different things. And the response.
By the way, expect a brutal message from the moms of Holly Springs now.
Yeah.
What? You got those oatmeal cookies?
But we're pretty busy at the restaurant, and so they're being seen by a lot of people, and I'm like, this fills me with pride to know that these are friends of ours that we've kind of been there from the beginning, to watch you guys just get out of the home bakery to the first coffee shop to now your own brick and mortar, and now you're doing a lot of wholesale. It's really cool to see that, and it fills me with pride, and also just to know that we could even at some point be a part of that. And so also
Sure.
Restaurants that want to do the same thing, I'm sure you could call them and figure it out too. Maybe then they'll have to buy that 120 quart or gallon, whatever the unit of measure is, but mixer. So just that. I mean, you've had to propel fast and learn how to maximize that. What's going through your brain, Heather, as you're organizing your thoughts as a baker in this new realm?
Oh, gracious. I don't even know how to answer that question. A lot of
That's
things.
accurate. That's gracious.
Let me ask you this.
Oh, gracious. Yes, that's the response.
That's what's going on. Let me ask you a technical question then on that. Like when you're scaling, is it just simple multiplication? Like I'm making for 1 dozen cupcakes. Oh, now I'm making for 5 dozen cupcakes. So I just got to times it by 5. Or does it change like how things interact in recipes?
Some recipes you can just do simple multiplication. Some things need some adjustment. So it just kind of depends on what we're working with. But I know it sounds crazy, like a 60-quart mixer. I wish, like, I could show you a picture. You should see this thing. It's massive. Like, if you have like a 4 or 5-year-old, like, you could fit your child in the bowl. Like, it's
wow.
It's like a massive,
Don't
massive
do that,
bowl.
by the way.
No, don't do it. It would be a really bad idea. Or maybe like roll the bowl away from the mixer stand, and then you could put the kid in the bowl. But like, it's massive, but it's still like small, so we can still, like, we're making vanilla cake in this massive bowl, but we have to still make it like multiple times a week to keep up with like the cake orders and the cupcakes and the Y Hill and the High Grove Estate, and like it's still just it's crazy.
I mean, to your question, I think the thing I didn't appreciate going into this thing was just the amount of R&D that goes into getting a recipe to where you want it, right? Like no joke. It's probably not an exaggeration to say that anything that shows up on the menu probably has 25 hours of prototyping, depending on how new it is. So, like, the origin of this thing is that, when you started dating, Heather asked for a stand mixer, thought it was a joke, like, okay, you're going to get the stand mixer, and now I'm a jerk because I got you an appliance for, like, a holiday, like, nice
what
try.
A romantic.
Right.
Yeah.
Got her the mixer with, like, a couple of cookbooks from when I spent some time kind of, like, living and working in New York a bunch, and there were a couple of bakeries I patronized there, and it was those cookbooks that kind of, helped go beyond, like, hey, here's, like, the couple of things I've made to, like, hey, we're doing some pretty advanced kind of flavor combinations. And honestly, that's still a huge part of what we do. So when we travel, we're forever hanging out and like, hey, let's go hit this used bookstore and pick up a thing that hadn't been in print for a bunch of years. Ironically, being from Raleigh, Debbie Moose, who's like a food writer at News and Observer, puts out some like phenomenal, like small, but like very niche, like Southern cookbooks. Some of them haven't been in print in ages, man. Picking up those cookbooks and playing around and saying, okay, this thing works in this iteration, but now we have these other requirements, right? We can't use, this type of icing because it's not going to be, stable in a wedding cake, or we can't do XYZ, or, we have a butter cake that already works. Let's go ahead and plug that in. And so it's actually a ton of time in just bringing a new thing to life. And so, we're doing things like reading the Flavor Bible, which is like a phenomenal list of flavor pairings, man. And we'll say, hey, we want to pair these things. We have like an Evernote that we share, and it's hundreds of items long. And it's like, okay, like these flavors work together, but how do we bring that to a recipe? Like, because I want to deliver the, making this up, I'm doing like, guava, lime, habanero or something. Like, okay, I'm going to deliver this flavor in this way, but like, what is the texture? What is the mouthfeel? Is it a filled cake? Is it a topping? Is it some funky ganache? It's a huge amount of work, man. And so that's the thing we're really grappling with right now is that, man, as we're doing like stupid production, the joy of just creating a thing, you have to really make time for that, right? So, I mean, it's the reason that if you look at guys that are performing at a really high level, Rene Redzepi, he just takes time off and just prototypes, right? He has a separate physical space from his production space to just like, I think it's on a boat, or it was at one point, right? The Noma test kitchen was on a boat just somewhere. And like that is the reason, and we did not expect that coming into this, by far.
Well, I'll say this: when you're saying maybe buying the mixer for Heather as a present for your mate might not be considered, the most romantic. It reminds me, like I always take credit for Felicia's photography.
You made her.
I built her. I created her because she is a phenomenal art drawer. She can paint, she can hand draw, she can draw your face with a pencil and it looks identical to you.
I did not know that.
She's a phenomenal artist. Most people don't know. Wow. But she loved just taking pictures, just with a little Instamatic or a little, back in the day, everybody, before there used to be digital, there was a thing called film, and she'd have like a 35 millimeter, but just a cheap camera, and she'd take pictures everywhere. And when she graduated from Pepperdine with her master's in business, I bought her a Canon AE1, which was like, In photography terms, it's like an acoustic guitar. It's like the most basic of all things. It's the simplest form. There's no auto anything. But I thought, well, if you like photography, this is going to be a way for you to really learn photography. And so here, this is my gift to you as a business person. And we didn't know at the time, but her business now is photography. And so that's why I'm like, I created you. But looking at it in a much more honest way is that your mate, you know your mate better than you. Like, you are a reflection of the person that you are married to, dating, or, you know, whatever. As much as possible, you are as closely connected to them as anybody. And so it only makes sense that you would give your mate the thing that they don't even realize they want the most, you know? And, like, it's like, here, this is a thing that I can just see that you need in your life. And look what you've done with that, like, both of you.
It worked out. I'm not mad about it. And now you mentioned Felicia, so shout out to Felicia over at Food Scene. So, man, incredibly talented photographer. In full transparency, you guys already know, but she did the last round of photos for the bakery.
Yeah.
And man, we were blown away. And I had been seeing her work just through my time here, and then like all of the Raleigh magazine stuff. And I'm like, man. Felicia took a slice of pie and made it like the most interesting thing I've seen in a long time. And I'm like, take my money, like whatever it's required. Like, please come photograph my cakes. And so, yeah, we haven't even released all the photos she did, man, but she is amazing.
Yeah.
And thank you for that plug. And Felicia, we are now on the hook you're on the hook for 10% of your future gigs. Thank you. No, I mean, granted, those everything looks amazing, but part of it is the attention to detail, and I love that because on this show, and I feel like lately we've gotten away from it because there's so much going on politically in the world and all this other stuff that we get away from the beautiful creativity behind the culinary world, and I'm always so fascinated into how that comes up, like it's not just like I made a muffin here and there. I made a cupcake. So I'm going to be a professional baker. No, like you took time, you do intense R&D and the thing about these cookbooks providing inspiration, like I think that makes so much sense in this world because there's so much that people have learned but also forgotten that we need to rediscover, and then you bring these flavor back in your own interpretation. But I know that, just knowing you a little bit, and Heather, I think you guys, first of all, that's what makes yours probably so successful because the product is of utmost quality because you take the time to do it. But also, I think you really enjoy that. Like, you really enjoy that process of digging into those recipes. I mean, even we were texting back and forth like a couple of weeks ago, and you were trying to make something that was, and I forget what you said, but you said, man, it turns out it just needed more salt. I was just like, isn't that always the answer?
Oh, yeah. We're talking about chicken soup, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, like, because soup, I mean, again, like being from the South, like food is a way you love people well. And so anytime you're ill, we're normally coming over with this vat of chicken soup. And man, I had been like chasing like depth of flavor in chicken broth for a long time. And I'm like, I'm roasting up the veggies and I'm roasting the bird and I'm, scraping my brown bits and deglazing and the whole thing. And man, made Matty Matheson, who I think he's from somewhere in Canada, Toronto maybe, who's from like Parts and Labor, super, super talented dude. His first cookbook came out a couple of years ago, and he has like a very basic, like 7-ingredient chicken soup.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's super simple. And the thing that really brings out the depth in chicken flavor is more salt.
I was going to say, well, don't hide from MSG. Everyone pretends like they don't use MSG. MSG is being used all the time
everywhere.
More places than you expect. It got a bad rap for Chinese food, MSG, all this stuff. It's
a little bit racist.
It was like weird that like it was the same thing with like fried chicken and watermelon seemed racist. It's like, yeah, but fried chicken and watermelon are delicious.
Who doesn't like these things?
These things work well together, and a little salt on the watermelon, even better. And so it's like, but MSG gets used all the time, and most people don't want to admit that they're using it, and because of the bad rep of like it's so much sodium. I'm like, do you know how much sodium is in everything that you try? Like, that's MSG is not the problem. It actually will just kind of cut all the bullshit and get right to the flavor.
It does.
Yeah.
But, I mean, most people don't even know, man. You can roll into your neighborhood grocery store and buy straight MSG. It's called Accent. Get some, put it in your pantry. It'll change the way you cook. You should have some.
Yeah.
No, two things. You just reminded me of Mike Lee, who, if you've listened to the show, I think I hold in such high regard. And
M Sushi.
Of M Sushi and Pocha and M Tempura that are soon going to be opening. And his R&D reminds me so much of you guys because, like, I remember he was trying to do one of his concepts he was trying to do was like was going to have tacos, but he just could not get the right consistency on his taco. And I remember like I tasted with him like 3 times, and every time he had like a new one. It was like, that's really good. But so it's just like trying and working those flavors. And this is a story that I feel like something you guys would do or appreciate. And I don't think he'll mind me talking about, but and Max, I don't know if you knew this. Right before COVID, he went to do a stage in New York.
Yeah.
And he didn't want them to know who he was, so he had like a friend call in a favor to like get him a job, quote unquote.
Okay.
And he staged at 11 Madison Park.
Wow.
Which is regarded as one of the best restaurants in the entire world. And he's like, I was doing it. I just wanted to be there. But he's like, by the second day, they kind of caught on, and then I was like making the food. but I just think about that when you guys talk about your R&D and like and you talked about the baker who just stops and like, no, I'm just going to stop production and go research. Like, imagine that. And you guys probably can't right now because you're in the thick of like building this business, but imagine just stopping what you're doing, stopping your business, or at least like having the people in place to that it's going to run smoothly, and you just go like hone your craft even better than it already is, like where you're recognized in such high excellence.
Yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. And that's kind of the goal, right? To grow the business to the point where we can do that sort of thing. But I think what we've kind of had to drill down to, just because like production is so crazy right now, trying to keep up with it, is, we got into this. I mean, we love the R&D. We love, I think I still love baking. Most days I still love baking. But we got into it for the people. Like our whole thing is, good things are meant to be shared. And so we strive to make something that you taste and you go, man, like I've got to share this with somebody else. So whether it's, somebody's passed away and I want to, deliver delicious treats to their family, or, it's a birthday, it's whatever the special moment in your life is, like we want to share in those moments with our people. And so we've kind of had to focus on like the people. And that, that's what it's really about. And one of these days we'll step away from the production to do more of the R&D. But I think right now we just want to make sure that we're serving our people well, whether that's our customers or, our staff even. Like we've put a lot of effort into making sure that we're taking good care of them. And
yeah, how big is your staff now? Because obviously at the beginning it was just the two of you, and you've had to grow.
The two of us. Yeah, I guess you could count Kyle as staff.
He's a delivery guy.
I'm a delivery guy.
He's a delivery guy.
At lunch.
His business cards used to say chief cake tester. Is that what it was?
That's what it used to say.
Accurate.
I mean, he does all of our, our marketing and that sort of thing. So I guess he's technically on staff. But we keep him out of the kitchen because
venture capitalist, that counts for anything these days.
The man makes an incredible brisket, but cake baking is not for him. That's not his thing. I had him make our chocolate cake, which chocolate cake, if you've ever made chocolate cake, is like the simplest thing. It's kind of like a one bowl deal.
Not for me.
It was lumpy and terrible, and like I was like, I can't bake this. Like I could not make this into a cake. But anyway, we keep him out of the kitchen. But we have, gracious, do we have 10 people on staff now?
Oh wow,
sounds about right.
That's even more than I thought.
I think that's where we are.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, with like front of house folks and dishwashers and bakers, and not all that we do is super glamorous, but because sweet potatoes are big in the bakery, so we're often like mashing and peeling sweet
potatoes. Yeah,
like by the case, it's awful. But yeah. So we've got a good group of people, but we are looking for more.
Oh, now hiring.
Yeah.
Now hiring.
Well, that doesn't. I mean, I wanted to kind of transition a little bit to talk about a little bit with just what was going on here, and I like that because this transition is to kind of keep it more on the positive side about rebuilding and going forth. And right before the show started, I went down to Morning Times, which is just across the street from here, over here at the studios, and I'm waiting for a toasted bagel with cream cheese and some cold brew, and I'm watching all the guys out front take down all of the boarded up windows that are at Raleigh Times and Morning Times and all the businesses that are down, because we're recording this on Monday, August 31st, and this was like in the wake of anticipated there was an organized protest that happened on Friday and Saturday, and we also had a citywide curfew that shut down Raleigh at 10 o'clock. That affected us over at Y Hill. We were like, oh, we got to shut out. We got to like get people out the door, and all that. We all had to have documents that stated that we were essential employees of food service that would allow us to close and then get home on a later hour than 10 o'clock because of those reasons. But all this stuff, we had to follow this protocol. Ultimately, the end of like what these were typically like peaceful protests, and there was very little damage that was done, at least not to the same extent of the first time this happened. So many tears were shed, like yours truly as well, like just dealing with all of this and watching our business. You mentioned you're going to go down to CVS to get a cigarette to savor this moment. You can't get that cigarette at the CVS because it's boarded up and that business doesn't even exist anymore.
Wow.
Because it's been completely destroyed.
It's flooded out, that's right.
It was flooded out and it was lit on fire. This building was lit on fire. And luckily, the fire suppression systems that we had in there put the fire out because the fire department said, oh, yeah, we're not coming because this is like a state of emergency. We're not going to put our firefighters in risk, their risk, harm's risk. And we're like, yeah, but if this high rise goes down, many will go down around it. And so it's just a weird time that we're living in. And I just felt like it was deja vu as I'm watching these guys take all these things down again. And it was right after I say we, but the royal we of all of us as society just put windows back into the buildings, just started getting it looking kind of set. We were kind of trying to move forward with whatever we can do here, at least in downtown Raleigh, to then experience a lot of more social injustice happening across the country and here even in Wake County. The courts deemed that an officer was just for shooting a man of color who was holding a toy gun in his hand. And, it's like, without going down so deep into that, you hear it, you understand it, and you're like, man, we are just still so far away from being like at a point where we are all very respectful of who we are. I wouldn't say this without like these are just facts. The two of you are African American and you run a business. I've been speaking a lot. What say you of what the recent things happening, especially as African American business owners?
Yeah, it's been it's been tough to kind of sort through all of just personally, like all of the emotion, right? Like anger and pain, and it's a lot to sort through. And but from the business perspective, I can definitely say, like, I remember, like, after George Floyd and, everybody did, like, the Blackout Tuesday thing on Instagram, and, we did that as well. And then afterwards, it was, we're a bakery, right? So we're posting pictures of, like, unicorn cakes and rainbows. And so, it's really bright and fun. And it was hard. We kind of went dark for a little while there just because I didn't know how, like, what to post. Like, is it really appropriate to post a unicorn cake right now? Like, I don't feel like it is. But eventually, I think we just kind of decided the reason that we would continue is the same reason that we got started. Like, it's about people. It's about sharing good things. And if nothing else right now, our nation, our community, our, Holly Springs, the people that we can actually reach, they need good things. So if we can share some positivity, however, whether that's through a cupcake or a cookie or a unicorn cake or whatever that looks like, when people walk through our door, no matter what they look like or what their political affiliation may be, whether we agree or disagree, like, the one thing we can say is we want to share good things with you. And so we've, I think, stuck to that message because it's one that we really believe in. And, that's kind of where we are, at least from a business perspective.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot to unpack, right? Because it's, you can't look at everything that's happening, and I think almost irrespective of color, like black, white, green, whatever. You can't sit in the middle of that and kind of not deal with the grief and the lament and the outcry. Like you have to look at that and say, okay. What did Dr. King say? That a riot is the language of the unheard. So you have to look at that, and the lens is, okay, something fundamentally is off here. Let's have a conversation and take some meaningful steps to addressing the root issue there, and like that's the human thing to do. But to Heather's point, the human thing to do is to, like, figure out how do we get through this together, right?
Yeah.
And that, when you get back to that very Southern tradition of like, we're going to show up to your home with, food for either a really good day or a really bad day, because that is kind of the language of us getting through. That was the thing that kind of brought it full circle, right? Yeah. So we're, I won't presume to have, any answers. I mean, what I can say is that, when you look at the kind of the bigger issues, the economic, kind of the systems that kind of underpin a lot of the frustrations in this moment, we didn't get into the business to like, oh man, we're like a black couple is going to open a bakery, right? But the more I kind of began to peel the layers on kind of the systems of systemic oppression, right? Yeah. That excluded people of color from upward mobility through like opening a business. So if you take a practice like, redlining, for example, right? Yep. For most people, right, a home's going to be, the way you accumulate wealth, right? You bought a brownstone in Brooklyn in the 70s for 40 grand. You're still alive today, probably. Congratulations, man. Your place is worth $2 million, right? Yeah. And if you don't have access to kind of that lever, right, you're hamstrung in a lot of ways in terms of you're in the wrong neighborhoods, the schools there aren't phenomenal, your kids are going to be less likely to perform, blah, blah, blah. And then I looked at that through the lens of our own story, right? Like the small business loan underpinning Bestow baked goods came with like our home as collateral, right? Like there is no Bestow if the things that were happening not that many years ago were happening today. And so whereas before it's like, hey, let's just do a thing we love and it's fun, we like to feed people and blah, blah. Like that reality, man, kind of injected this thing with like a sense of obligation. Like this is a thing men almost have to do for the people that couldn't do it before. And we have to kind of freaking crush it because this is like a golden moment, man. Like right. how could you not? How could you be in this moment where, the only thing in your way is you, right? The shackles are off to a large extent, not totally. There's still some stuff to deal with. But in terms of being able to play the game, you're at the table, man. You got to make the most of this moment. There's no other option.
That's awesome. When you put it in that perspective and think about that, I mean, it's literally linked to the thing that previous people of color could not have because of redlining. Yeah, that's astonishing.
What I didn't know until recently is that, and this is probably too heavy for this interview, but I didn't know that because all this stuff is a matter of public record, you can still go and read like the comments on redline neighborhoods, and they are as horrible as you would imagine. Like they're on record for Durham, right? And you can literally see, this block of Main Street. Good Italian families concerned with working class Negroes entering. Like that's a thing that's documented on record today. This is not like something that happened 200 years ago, man. This is fairly recent history.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of those things even right now in today's society. Like there were letters of people up in Wake Forest telling the young African American couple that has a family. They're like, "We're fine with you living here, just basically don't get in our way." I'm like, how is this? Yeah. How is this a thought that we can have in today's society? And it's really unfortunate. I think the fortunate part about it is everybody's now just saying what they feel, and I think we're actually getting to hear it more. Mm-hmm. And even if maybe when you hear things, they could come off extremely offensive or so, at least you're hearing it.
Right.
So it's like, cool, it's the devil you may know, right, is better than the one you don't. And so you may be thinking everybody else is smiling and just saying, bless your heart, when really they're saying, get the fuck out of here, underneath their heads. So maybe when people say, oh, it's time to start a dialogue and all that, well, yes, but sometimes that dialogue is a horrible dialogue, and sometimes it's really hard to hear how people are. It's not saying like, oh, everyone's just going to be completely altruistic and true. No, starting the dialogue also means to hear the hate and hear the anger and the frustration from all sides of the fences. And then you have to be able to process all of that and then figure out, okay, cool. Now I know where you stand.
Right. Yeah.
So how do we get to a point where we can have harmony? And I think we're going to still be in this phase for a time.
I do want to interject there because this is where I feel like we need actionable items and things that we can do. And I'm just going to give a shout out to my colleague Brad Beavers right now, who works for Winebow as well. But he was so fed up with this, with all the racial injustice, that he started an Instagram page called Project Empower 919, which you guys are a part of, and it's about black businesses around the Triangle that you can support. And if you just go to their Instagram page, Project Empower 919, you can see a document of black-owned businesses that you can support, which I think is important because we vote with our dollars. And it's not to say like, oh, well, it's not like a thing like, oh, well, we never did this before. But I feel like in the little ways we can, I mean, let's support those businesses right now, especially in this time. So I wanted to share that.
No, that's great. I mean, I love in the end that our relationship has stemmed from the fact that it's funny. I just had this conversation with my neighbor and his daughter, who's 11 or 12, and she was trying to find her place in middle school and all that. And we said, about success and about being successful was being true to yourself and do what you can. And I said, but it also is a lot about the company you keep, like if you are the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room. Right? It's like those things. And if you're the only person that's doing all these things and you're just kind of helping bring all your friends up, it's like, it's time to get like some better friends. And so like get people that where you can look up to them and you can strive to be better and keep that good company. And I like that we here, like you, me, Matt, Sarah, Felicia, Heather, Kyle, like all of us are people that we all respect each other, but we also work hard. We all kind of use each other's services in like the most collaborative and respectful way.
Wait, is Bestow going to sell wine?
I would love a liquor license.
Little competition. Never hurt anyone. But it's like, we're all just like, you hire my wife to take pictures. Great. We hire you to make cupcakes. Great. You guys are on our podcast. You've paid us to sponsor and talk about your things. Matt will do like all the pairings for like Blake Gottlieb's pop-ups, and like, it's like everyone's doing a thing that just helps to support each other, but we're also doing it because we're friends. And that's, I think, like the coolest part about this type of society that I want to live in. And so I guess the best way to do it is just by example and continually doing that and talking about it on a podcast where thousands of people can hear it, right?
That's right.
It's important, right? You happen to find, I think, an important idea around the importance of open dialogue, because if you look at other places that have gotten kind of, beyond periods of darkness in the context of, like racial injustice, look at what South Africa did with apartheid. So part of getting past that was the open dialogue. Like we have to, from perspective, like kind of open the kimono and let's everybody talk about all the jacked up things we did and get them on the table and then move beyond them, right? And like I would say in the States, man, and especially in the South, we don't do that terribly well. Like we'll sweep stuff under the rug. Like you can go to a Christmas in a Southern home today, and there's surely to God like an uncle nobody wants to leave their kids with, right? And he still gets to be in the family because we just sweep stuff under the rug, and we've kind of done that at the larger scale, right? Yeah. With some of these like deeper issues, right? And so to your point, there has to be a dialogue.
And it almost is better to be like, okay, if you're going to be like the total racist whatever person at Thanksgiving, instead of just saying, oh, pipe down, shut up, I don't want to hear it. It's almost like, no, speak. Right. I want to hear why you think all of these ways. Right. Like I might not be able to ever change your opinion, but I at least want to know why you think this. And then that way it might be easier for me to understand how to process dealing with these situations better in the future, rather than just kind of saying, oh, he's an old coot, he's set in his ways and whatever. It's like, well, his ways were created for some reason, for some thought. But anyhow, pretty heavy stuff, but I appreciate being able to have these conversations with friends,
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other things I was going to say you kind of hit on. I think empathy comes from, how's it? Empathy
proximity
comes
breeds
from,
empathy?
Yes. So the fact that we are, like, what does your circle look like? Like, you hit on that earlier. Like, are you the smartest person in the room? Are you the only person that looks like you in the room? Like, what does your circle look like?
Right.
We don't grow in those scenarios where we're, the only one in the room that.
Yeah, because then you don't realize that there's so many other things. It's like when you say, like when you shout at somebody or honk at somebody on the street, it's like you have no idea what's going through their mind at that very moment.
Yeah.
And the more you can understand other people's perspective is when I think you can kind of understand society a little bit better.
Yeah, I think the best example of that I've got is we've got a good friend, Doug, who cycles. And so, you know, Holly Springs is like one of the best towns or whatever for cyclists.
Sure.
Yeah.
What is that? I don't know.
Bike
what the
riders.
right- Bike riders. Cyclists.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm terrible. I don't ride a bike, obviously.
Clearly.
So he cycles. And, you know, I'm driving my car along on this one-lane road, and I'm like, why is this person on a bike in my way? Like, I just want them to move so I can go, right? So I'm, like, angry, like, waving my fists out the window, you know, like, just upset. And Doug tells me one day, he's like, the reason that, like, cyclists do, like, take up the whole lane is so that when you pass them, you don't like run them off the road. Like people don't lose their lives. Like they take up more space so that you can't do that. So now every time I pass that or I'm behind that, instead of thinking like, get out of my way, I've got places to be. It's like, man, that could be Doug up there on that bike. And I love Doug, so I'm not going to run him off the road.
And his point is also, it's a great metaphor because it's saying, I'm not going to just casually be on the side of the road for the bigger vehicle, the stronger whatever, to just pass by me. I'm making a statement. I'm being here. You have to acknowledge me and move around me because I'm here.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense in society, right?
It does.
So,
especially for where we are now. It's true.
yeah.
Well,
We're going to get out of here.
we're going to get out of here, and I'd also like to say that something else that is of very close proximity to you guys is our great friends who do sell wine at the Triangle Wine Company. They have a shop right next door to you guys, and they are great friends of our show as well. They have 4 locations. They are in Southern Pines, Morrisville, Cary, and of course right next to you guys in Holly Springs once again. That's Triangle Wine Company. Go there for all your wine, beer, vermouths, needs. They will take care of you very well, and that's trianglewineco.com, and you can get a 10% discount, at least 10%. Some days they feel better and you get more off.
And you can also buy ice cream there, which I'd be curious to know how those would go with these sweet potato donuts over here. Maybe a little proof alcohol ice cream. Think differently about your dessert. At least they're thinking with their booze minds when they're making dessert. I would wonder if you two have ever experimented with a little alcohol in some of your dishes. You're both nodding yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We could do like the like a brown sugar bourbon cream cheese icing that goes with the sweet potato cupcake that's appearing. I mean, you've done.
You can put bourbon in anything.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
What else, Ben?
I mean, we've done like wine and cupcakes before with like chocolate.
Did a margarita cupcake at one point.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Well,
tequila.
You can get bourbon caramel ice cream or a strawberry moonshine, or you can do coconut rum, all of which I think would go really great with a slice of cake right next to it too. But so of course we're talking about proof alcohol ice cream, and you can find them pretty much anywhere right now. They're at Harris Teeter, at Lowe's. They're at the aforementioned Triangle Wine Company and a lot of other wine shops around town where they're trying to expand their retail reach so that they can live in this world. So look for the branded proof alcohol ice cream freezer. It's bright red, and it usually will be centered in the beer and wine section of your grocery store. So go to proofalcoholicecream.com and enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming here, sharing your story, doing what you do. We will see you very soon. And for all of those out there, go to Bestow Baked Goods. You will eat extremely merrily.
Thanks for having us, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.